Okay, so what are we going to cover today? Like I said, we're going to talk about PACE, what it is, how it all works, but we're also going to go into a few other things that you should be thinking about if you get involved with a PACE program, and we're going to give you kind of an overview of a case study. For those that saw the press release, we finally got to announce that we have a PACE program that's approved for a Star Lincoln dealership at Telegraph and 12 Mile, and we'll go through the details of that. What I wanted to share with you guys are a few facts that are going on here in the United States right now. So there's 5.6 million buildings here in the US. These are industrial, commercial, multifamily, small manufacturing, not residential. The average age is 50 years old. It's a lot of old buildings, a lot of old buildings. And here in Michigan, we got a whole bunch of them, especially in southeast Detroit. I grew up in Frankenmuth in the Flint-Saginaw Bay City area. Same area, just a lot of old buildings. 30% of a massive utility bill is waste through inefficient technologies. Primarily lighting and heating and cooling. Those are the two biggest hogs in a majority of the buildings that are out there today. And guess what? 80% of it was installed before 1986. So for companies like us, there's a lot of opportunity out there. The other thing is that I think it was by the end of this year, a majority of your halogen bulbs, your single pin T8 fluorescents, your T12 fluorescents, and a whole bunch of incandescent bulbs are gone. But yet there are still 500 million T12 bulbs here in the US. That's just one type. And I'll tell you this, there's yet to be one facility that I've been in the last 3 years that doesn't at least have one. Or if not, all of them, okay? And I still have some in my house, believe it or not. So, here's another interesting fact. We rank 13th out of the 16, largest economies out there for energy efficiency. Now, I have my opinions about that. We're going to talk about some of that. Also, it's policy. I spent a lot of my career outside of the United States, and those that are really doing it, it's because it's being driven home by, kind of the upper management, let's just say that. And we don't have a lot of policy in here that drives it. So why is this? Here we are. We got lots of great technologies and everybody's sitting on their hands not investing in energy efficiency technology. Well, I'll tell you this. I spent 30 years in automotive, and you got your traditional barriers out there. What are they? No money. How many people go in, talk to a CFO, we don't have money for that? I hear it all the time. Long payback. How many places you go? If I can't pay for it in 2 years, I don't even want to have a talk about it. The industry that I was in, we mass produced millions of parts a year. You should have seen the box of Band-Aids we had, okay? Because you'd spend $1 and they'd want you to use it for 20, 30 years and it was worn out in 5. And then finally, the risk versus savings. A little story, Craig Vigis and myself were at a market here, I don't know, it's been a couple of weeks ago in Detroit. And we went in there and kind of did our pitch about, we're going to save you money. And he's like, I don't believe any of it. I don't believe in energy efficiency. You can't save me any money. I just got all the lights out in my parking lot replaced with LED, and guess what? My bill went up. And I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, because they were all burned out. So that's out there. That's out there. There's this disbelief out there that you can't save money. Now, I'm an engineer by trade. It's pretty simple. I'm going to take a 400 watt bulb that's on for 9 hours a day at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, and I'm going to reduce the wattage in half. There's savings there, okay? And that's part of what PACE does, is we really go deep dive to show them on how all this works. Now we all know there's a big problem out there, all right? Nobody's got money. long payback periods. I don't believe what you say. It's not guaranteed. What's the answer? PACE, all right? I'm a true believer in this program. That's why we're one of the first that have a program in the state. And it eliminates the barriers that you guys are getting either from your clients or those that own buildings here in the room today that are interested in what this is and how it works. So what is PACE? So it's really a finance program that covers 100% of energy efficient upgrades, but it does it through a tax assessment, okay? So Andy, if you could tell us a little bit about how the tax assessment works and what are all the moving parts with, you know, the governments that are involved, the financiers and all that.
Sure thing, Scott. Good afternoon, everybody. So PACE, property assessed clean energy. So you have to have an assessment on the property. That's the linchpin of it. And it means that a local government has to join or create a PACE program in order for you to do a PACE project. And that's why we have this statewide Lean and Green Michigan program where we're helping all the local governments. The property owner enters into a special assessment agreement with, let's say, the county. So we, the PACE district, really do all the work on this for you. But there's a legal document created. There's every county and city in Michigan and in America has the ability to levy special assessments. They just normally did it for something else. They're paving a road, they're putting in a sewer line, they slap a special assessment on everybody on that street, figuring they benefit more than the people on the next street. What PACE does, Scott, is simply says, okay, well, why can't Kurt with his office building, or Sean with his apartment complex, or Terry with his factory, why can't any of them, just in their own self-interest, take on a special assessment to do a clean energy upgrade for their building? It doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. You get a private lender to lend the money, they simply become the beneficiary of the special assessment agreement, and boom. Their risk position is completely different than a bank giving you a mortgage. Because if you stop paying your taxes, the county is going to enforce the special assessment agreement and either get you to pay it or they'll seize your building and sell it for at least back taxes, so the lender's made whole, and the new owner picks up the remainder of the payments. So it's very secure for the lender, therefore they'll lend you money at a fixed interest rate for 20 years. And this is why it solves so many of these problems. But basically, in terms of the mechanism, property owner is entering into a special assessment agreement on that one building with the city of Southfield in the case of Star Lincoln, which they've already done, or for the new headquarters of the Michigan Public Service Commission, which is in Delta Township in Eaton County, owned by a private investor who owns that building. That investor entered into a special assessment agreement with Eaton County. And it's really easy for the building owner, Scott, because we do all the work for them, and they just have to sign the special assessment.
So one of the things that Andy did talk about is that it's adopted by state and local government. So it's actually a statute at the state level. But just because it's at the state level doesn't mean that anybody can use it, because where is the tax collected? The county, okay? So the county itself has to kind of come on board, and or the city. So that's the mechanism that works. And the statute has a lot of things in there that, let's just say they're protecting the people with the money, but they're also protecting the client. So, you know, they're mitigating a lot of the risk out there that traditionally people don't get involved with these programs because, quote, their ass is on the line. They don't want to. Or, God, I don't want to carry that debt on my balance sheet. The next thing is that, and Andy touched on, it's long-term funding. You know, I go into these meetings and, you know, say we're going to do a $500,000 project on lighting. And they're like, oh boy, I don't know if I want to do this PACE thing, 20 years, got to carry it. I'm like, look, What bank are you going to be able to walk in and say, hey, I want to do a $500,000 lighting project. Can you give me a loan for 20 years? They're going to laugh them right out. You'd be lucky to get it for a year or two. Why? Because the bank look at it as an expense. It's not capital. They don't treat it as capital. We as an organization, we treat it all as capital because it's an investment. That's what it is. And Terry will talk about some of the abandonment stuff. I mean, look, it's on your books. It's a light fixture. It's personal property. It needs to be treated that way. But in industry, they don't. And I came out of industry, so I've seen it, you know, time and time again. And they just miss out on opportunities like that. So why PACE? It eliminates the barriers. You know, that's the biggest thing that you're going to see. Non-recourse and off-balance sheet. So again, it's going against the building. It's not going on your books. It's almost like a lease in a sense. But you can walk away from it. You know, hey, I just did a PACE program. Can I sell my building? Yes. Who's going to pay for it then? The next building owner. Or, even better, and Andy's got a little story about that, the guy that owned the MPSC building. You know, who's paying his bill? The renters. It's beautiful. You mean you're going to fix my building, all new stuff, and I don't have to pay for it? Hey, it's a no-brainer. And it's very unusual in my line of work, especially in the automotive industry, to hear a CFO say, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we do this? And we hear it now. We hear it very, very often. No upfront capital required. There is no application fee. There is no, hey, we need 10% down payment. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. And every cost that's involved with the project gets financed. So there's a lot of moving parts here, folks. We got lots of subcontractors, partners, auditors, our cost, Andy's cost, legal cost. Guess what? They're all covered. All of them. Okay? Long-term financing up to 20 years. Here's the kicker. You know, I talked about the statute, that it's law. It has to be cash flow positive. And we're not talking about in year 18. We're talking about from day one. So anybody out there that's been buying capital for the last 50 years, how many projects do you guys walk into that it's cash flow positive, unless you're pouring gold at $1,200 an ounce, that it's cash flow positive from day one? It just doesn't exist. Why? Because typically you're trying to, you know, force all this capital into a 5-year term or a 10-year term. Well, now I can push it out 20 years. So I'm working with the Ann Fowlers of the world on geothermals and the Prasads of the world on solar. Why? Because we can actually pencil it out. It works now. And that's why I said, you know, we work in any technology because we're all about the solutions. And there are no barriers to really being creative in coming up with some energy efficiencies for these clients. And then lastly, and more importantly, for the protection of the client, not so much for us as the provider, any project over $250,000 is guaranteed. The performance is guaranteed. So you're signing a contract with a client that says, here's all the assumptions, this is what we said it's going to do, and we guarantee it. And Andy will vouch to this. Our first contract was 69 pages long. Hey, I'm an engineer. I'm going to put all the stuff in there, okay? But it just doesn't exist. Even when you buy a piece of capital, what do they say? Hey, I'll give you a warranty for a year. You know, and you just spent millions of dollars on capital. Or I'll sell you an extended warranty or a service agreement, okay?